Hey, it's 5.1, background on ancient Greek tragedies and Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. Our learning objective students will be able to list the conventions or rules of Greek drama and compare their world to the world of Sophocles. Question I want you to have in your mind: what is Oedipus Rex by Sophocles and why are we reading it? Let's back up and talk semester 2 a little bit. You are being scored on these assessments by IB. And so we are working towards getting you ready for paper 1, the guided literary analysis. You already did your internal assessment in 11th grade, the higher level essay last semester. Paper 1 comes in May, and it is a 2-hour and 15-minute exam. You're going to be given not just 1, but 2 extracts, and you're going to be asked to write a 500-word essay on each. That's what we're working on getting you ready for. And we're using the formalist lens to do that because that's the kind of criticism that IB is expecting you to use on these assessments, where you're finding meaning through patterns and structures within the text. So we're asking these questions: how does form and structure mirror content? How can patterns in language inform meaning? And then how can literary art become a safe haven from the chaos and confusion of our world? We already tackled modern poetry. Now we are moving on to Oedipus Rex. The last unit is, I decided to join these two together, practicing the guided literary analysis and book club, so that's the only one we have left. So back to Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. That's where we are now. It was written in 430 BCE, before Common Era, so nearly 2,500 years ago. It's one of 7 remaining plays by Sophocles out of 120 or more that he wrote. The rest are gone. They're not in existence anymore. And it's one of the 3 Theban tragedies, each from a different tetralogy: Oedipus Rex, Antigone, and Oedipus at Colonus. How is analyzing drama different from other forms is the first question on your notes about this text. Well, we have to remember, first of all, that we do have other forms. We've got prose fiction, prose nonfiction, and poetry. We've tackled poetry most recently. We did prose nonfiction first semester, and prose fiction is everything else you've ever studied, probably, in English class. So we got to come back to drama to remind ourselves, in case one of those extracts in May is from a play. The key is that drama is meant to be performed on stage and viewed by an audience. So everything you read in this play, you have to add a layer of imagination to, so that you can analyze it appropriately. It was not meant to be read in a classroom out loud. It was meant to be seen and heard and watched in performance. And so there are other layers of meaning that we have to attribute to the play as we use our imagination. Also, when we're reading the play, the primary text is, of course, the main body of the play spoken by the characters. That's all we would hear in a performance of the play. But we have the secondary text to help us as readers of a play instead of audience members of a performance of a play. And this is the text surrounding or accompanying the main text, like stage directions, and in our case we have some footnotes and other things like that. We also have to keep in mind that plays and their performance have multimedia elements like music, sound effects, lighting, stage props that we're not going to have as we read it. The space of the stage is important too, and the word scenery that's created. Now, the word scenery we can get as readers, but we're going to miss out on seeing the staging of the play. The perspective is a really important thing to analyze when we're looking at drama. It is the point of view from which information is given. In a play, almost all the information is given, especially in a Greek tragedy, it's given by the characters speaking. It's their basically dialogue, but we don't call it that in a play. And it's important to look at which character gives which piece of information, especially when we're looking at really important information, really important events. look at who tells us what in this play. When things get really awful, who is delivering the tragic news? And think about how that might affect the meaning of the play. Time is also important to look at when we're analyzing plays. How long is this play? How do the events happen? Or do they happen one after the other in succession, or do they happen at the same time in simultaneity? These are all aspects that are important to look at when we're analyzing drama instead of the other three forms. All right, where were Greek tragedies performed? Well, geographically, we are in Thebes in terms of the setting of the play Oedipus Rex. The play was actually written and performed in Athens, Greece. So this is ancient Greece. It's set in Thebes, written and performed in Athens. Greek tragedies began in Athens, Greece in the 6th century BCE. This text is about 100 years after our first recorded tragedies. In the 5th century, 430 is the 5th century. Performances of tragedies were the height of Greek theater and culture. This is the thing everybody was excited to do and to be a part of. They were part of festivals that would last for days on end, celebrating the Greek god Dionysus, the god of wine. And the performances were competitive, so playwrights would write 4 plays and stage them, and then they would be voted on whose was the best. Oedipus Rex got Sophocles a 2nd place prize when it was first performed. The amphitheater is where it was performed in terms of staging and seating, and the theatron held up to 15,000 people. And if we're thinking about ancient times, it's really rather phenomenal. These were stone seats. 15,000 people sat together to listen to, 20 people speak. And there were no electronic amplification systems. This was just through the acoustics of that of the architecture of that space outside. There were no special effects, no lights. They would have been staged in broad daylight, and practically no scenery. And so all of the effects came through the language of the playwright. Here's what the amphitheater looked like. That's where the performers would be performing. Actors, up to 3 at a time, were performing on stage with chorus members of 12 to 15, and they wore costumes, including masks that covered their whole head. Only men were allowed to perform. That's probably why they used the masks. Actors had some training, while chorus members had little training and were kind of regular citizens who got a chance to perform at the theater, or at the festival, I should say. Sophocles was not only the writer of the language, but he was also the director, the choreographer, because the chorus would dance, and the composer. The chorus would sing their lines. So he did all of those things, and each Greek writer would have done the same. Some conventions of Greek tragedies, the rules. First of all the main characters in tragedies are nobility. The protagonist or hero was expected to experience a reversal of fortune and a downfall, usually due to his reach for a lofty goal being thwarted by his own hubris or excessive pride. You'll have to decide if you think that Oedipus Rex suffers from this excessive pride or hubris, and if that's his downfall in the play. Aristotle, in Poetics, defined tragedy as the imitation of an action that is serious and also as having magnitude, complete in itself, in appropriate and pleasurable language, in a dramatic rather than narrative form, with incidents arousing pity and fear, wherewith to accomplish a catharsis of these emotions. Catharsis is an important word and should be bold-faced here. Sorry about that. So jot that one down. Catharsis is when you, as an audience member, are moved to tears. Have you ever cried at a movie? This is the moment you're experiencing catharsis. And the idea is that it's purging you of feelings that, in kind of a safe way, because you're watching tragic things happen to characters, people who are not real. And yet these are potential human tragedy that worry all of us. And so it resonates with us. We feel something when we see it, and we get those feelings out of us, in sometimes kind of a healthy way through viewing tragedy. That's what Aristotle thought anyway. All right, how about the 3 rules of unity? That's place, the fact that they happen all in one location, or that the play happens all in one location. In this case, we are in Oedipus Rex's palace. He is the king. That's what Rex means. The time is all one day, and the action is unified. All actions contribute directly to the main plot. The endings of tragedy plays can vary, but there's always something tragic, something terrible, some death and misery that happens. All right, the chorus in a Greek tragedy is very important and very different from modern drama, so I want to spend some time on this. The closest translation to the concept of directing a play in Greek is to teach a chorus. And so some of our very first ideas of drama are about the chorus directly. The chorus sings and dances to music in odes in the play, and it's a communal voice where it's a group of people, but they're all saying the exact same thing. We won't read it like that, but we'll do something that tries to kind of mimic that original aspect of the chorus. And there's also in our play, listed as a choragos, sometimes as a choral leader, a character who breaks away from the group and can speak directly to the characters. These lines are easier to understand because they seem to be from one person directed to one person. The other lines sometimes are a little bit trickier. They're more like poetry. The functions of the chorus are to provide background information, including mythological reference, and then also to be kind of like backup singers where they're repeating what is being said on stage, reinforcing a particular topic for whatever particular effect. And they also provide opinions that are larger than the individual characters, that take sort of a universal feeling or group or a reflection of the community at large. And sometimes they're different than what the characters on stage are talking about. The basic structure of a Greek tragedy starts with a prologue, and then it moves to a parados, which is a song sung by the chorus as it first enters dancing. It's divided into strophe and antistrophe, and I'll talk more about this in the next video. Scene 1 comes next, and it's also called an episode, and the characters chorus talk to each other. Ode 1 is at the end of scene 1, and this is when the characters usually leave the stage, and then the chorus sings and dances. This is divided also into strophe and antistrophe. The rest of the play alternates between scenes where the action occurs and then the odes where the chorus comments on the action. At the very end of the play, there is what's called an exodos, and this is the chorus exiting and singing a processional song. Key terms in a tragedy, here are a couple more to get down for you. Dramatic irony. This occurs when the meaning of the situation is understood by the audience, but not by the characters in the play. So we know more as audience members than the characters do. This is done for different effects. Tragic flaw, or hamartia, and that comes from the Greek word to err or to miss the mark. I guess it's originally from archery, so you don't quite hit the bullseye. This is an inherent defect or shortcoming in the hero of a tragedy who is in other respects a superior being, favored by fortune. And Aristotle in his Poetics said about this that it's not that the hero is engaged in villainy. They're not trying to do something they know is wrong. But instead, the tragedy comes from an error of judgment. And in Greek tragedy, this nature of the hero's flaw is elusive. It's hard to figure out often because the tragic deeds are committed without them really understanding that they're wrong to begin with. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, what is the point then? If this character is so wonderful and yet they bring about their own tragedy through their own unwitting actions, what good can come of a universe like that, where even when we're trying to be good, we can cause our own downfall? And so that kind of goes back to our universal theme here this semester of, how do we make sense of a world that seems unfair and full of chaos? And I think this is what Greeks were trying to do that long ago. We're still trying to do it now. So there's not an easy answer, but it's something worth thinking about because it's what makes us human. Thanks.